Welcome to my weekly review. Today is Saturday, May 10th, and we had a very interesting week with a ton of information and very constructive and productive on the index, even though the Nasdaq was down for the week. It just had some backing and filling or consolidating or digesting or whatever you want to call it these days. Back in the day, it was just backing and filling, and I'm going to stick with that. Anyway, we want to acknowledge a 27% correction from December 16th to April, I think it was April 7th when it made that low that Monday and then rallied back up and has had a 22%, rally, but it's still trading below the 200. So it's difficult for me to get uber bullish below the 200, but I am really bullish on this move. Why? Well, not only the 22%, gains from the lows, but you need 37% just to get back to even or the old highs of 20,204 on December 16th. So that's why you can't afford to take big losses because it takes a long time to get those gains back. If you lose 50%, you need a two-bagger just to get back to even. But anyway, I digress. I just want to point out the moves from the lows here is we had this big rally in early April, and then we had a bunch of profit takers, these non-believers in the rally here, and then we had another sharp rally up, and then last week we had this consolidation or pullback or backing and filling to the 10 EMA, and then it found support at the 10, which to me is telling, and just kind of went sideways, digesting gains on Thursday and Friday. Actually, Thursday was like a follow-through day up 1% and then a flat day on Friday. So a nice bounce off the 10. And you can count the number of days here above the 21, which is the magenta line here. So you're looking at a close of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 days that it closed above the 21. You can also see the 10 trading through the 50 and now the 21 trading through the 50. So it's trending higher. However, this 200 just looms large for me. It's still, 2.1% below that 200. So it's going to act as resistance, I believe. 2.1% there at 18,314. And until it gets through there, I can't be, uber bullish. I'm really bullish, but I mean, I would be more so if it could trade through there. Then I would think that, it would have the old highs in sight if it can rally through. And I don't like to make predictions, just interpreting what's going on in the market. And like I said, what's going on? We've had, 12 closes above the 21, the 10 and the 21 are above the 50. So that's indicating a trend higher. You can't have a rally without leading stocks. I'm going to get to that in a minute. But I'm not going to do the SPY and all that. I'm focused on the indexes, and I have a lot of stocks to get to and a lot of earnings reports that to me, you got to follow the leading stocks, and they're going to lead you to and tell you, they could gauge the strength of the market. So I'm going to get there in a minute, but I first want to point out Tesla, the only lag 7 stock that I'm really kind of interested in, and this is Tesla rallied above its 200 on Friday, which is significant. I think you can see the 200s at 293 and it closed at 298. Will it stay there? I don't know, but you can see how many times it had bumped up against the 200 here back on March 25th and on March 27th. Then it got rejected, came back for another round and got punched back down. April 28th, April 29th, got punched back down, came back up on May 2nd, retreated to the 10 and came back one more time. And on Friday, finally made it through. And we're just going to have to wait and see if it can rally back through, and stay above, the 300 level and the 200 SMA. So big hurdle to climb there for Tesla. And I'm just going to leave the Mag 7 there. You know what? Google's got a lot of problems, and Apple and Meta with the government. And I'm just doing stocks today. I'm not doing government crap. Sorry. And so I'm going to get to the stocks that I'm interested in. I'm going to start with earnings. We had earnings report last week from TG. And most of the biotech stocks sold off last week. ADMA was another one that I had. These things just getting slammed. I don't want to get into it. I'm just following the action of the stock. You can see this one sold off. Buy the rumor, sell the news. This is pretty typical of what TG has done, for its existence since the launch of their MS drug, Briumvi. Had this big move down in August of 2023, 45%. So this kind of does this, but you could see over time that it just makes these, higher lows, higher lows. It always pulls back though. One thing consistently that it does is just pull back, makes these higher lows. And there you can see this low here was recent 31, rallied up. It was down 3 weeks and up 3 weeks, then buy the rumor, sell the news. One thing that I noticed just when looking at the reports and talking with some friends, they had a huge buildup in inventory. So they spent money on inventory and they spent money on their trials because they're trying to get a every 2 month or every 3 month, 4 times a year infusion. If they get that, this stock's going to double. Right now, just with their current, I don't know why they're adding inventory. I better slow down here. First of all, they're adding inventory possibly because take out another company buying them out would say, hey, we need enough inventory to make sure we have enough for the patient. So they spend a ton of money on that. Also, could be, just getting ahead of the tariffs. I don't know about that. But anyway, they did raise. They had 120 million, 121 million, nice beat of 115 estimates. They raised guidance to 135, which is fine. So you take their word for it. That's what 255 million for the year, but they guided to 575. So that leaves 320 million. And that's if, if you take them at face value, I don't. So that leaves at 320 million for the last 2 quarters, which is 160. So they're going to have to significantly raise guidance at the next couple of quarters. And the company has been buying this stock around $30 to $32. And here we sit, last week, I think the low is 32 something. So they've been buying every month, January, February, March of this year, pretty much up to May. The low last week was 33.15. So that low of 31.08, I don't know if it's in jeopardy or not. If it gets down there, I'd say that would be a gift. But this company, solid growth, beat and raise. Now it was a 7 billion market cap when it traded up here at $45, not too long ago, $46, and now it's 5.2 billion market cap. So, if you loved it here, you should like it here, right? Or if you liked it here, you should love it here. Anyway, I'm I'm open to pullbacks and buying dips here in that one. Anyway, I got to move on. I'm not going to show ADMA. That one was a. I'm just kind of going to go with the strength and the positive because there's enough negative earnings reports here. So I'm looking at this sales and earnings growth, which I just showed you. TD had, TG Therapeutics did, and Oscar as well. This one is beaten down. Insurance name. This is a disruptor. 48% earnings growth. I mean, that's what's going to drive stocks higher over time. And Oscar looks good to me, right above its 200 here and showing well. Anyway, nice report. Uber reported last week. I don't know. This is a slower mover. The growth doesn't excite me here, really. 14% sales growth. It's decelerating here. 2020, 14. I like the company, longer term. It's just not a real fast move. And you can see the consolidation here, base on base pattern here. Still, it's got the blue dot line. Don't get me wrong. I like the stock. It's just not a fast mover. And it's, kind of a slower, but excellent for, this type of economy. So anyway, I'm going to move on from Uber and go to something, speaking of moving fast, Carvana. This one had decelerating sales growth as well, triple digit earnings growth. We like that. This one, if you look at the consolidation here and then a base cut pattern. So base on base here, I'm kind of liking Carvana. Not sure if I'm ready to put it on the ready list just yet. I would like to see it pull back to its 10 or at least its 5. I'm going to switch over to the 5 here because if we're looking at leading stocks and we're just interested in buying in a market like this, we're having a rally, we're looking at leading stocks, they should be supported at the 5. And you could see Carvana here, went sideways here, formed a little shelf, pulled back to the 5, so this is what, Friday, down 6%. We'll see if it bounces on Monday. I like its chances. That one may be appearing on our ready list pretty soon here. Carvana. All right, I'm going to move on. Another company that, gosh, this is a really good company. I don't own it. I kind of wish I did, but a nice report here. Nice move on Thursday. What did it go up? Yeah, 14%. We'll take that all day long. 32, 34, 31. So consistent above 30% sales growth. The earnings growth came down a little bit this quarter. I mean, when you're growing it, it's not linear growth. There's going to be choppy quarters. We'll see. We'll allow them one, I wouldn't call it a bad quarter. I'd just say, subpar for them of earnings. So AXON, another good move. SEZL, this one was sizzling. SEZL sizzles, man. This thing, I thought it was gonna just kind of chill out around 70 or went up to 79, 59, maybe chill out there. Nope, 87. So, God, what was the move last week on this? Yeah, 56%. That'll help your portfolio. So, nice IPO, fintech name with a positive earnings report. This is what's going to drive it, folks. Triple digit sales and earnings growth. I just hammer that point in over and over and over again. Yeah, you're going to get some stocks that rip higher that don't have it, some speculative names, but longer term, you got to have that sales and earnings growth. So anyway, it just depends on your style and how quick you want to be in the market. This is Dave. Dave's not here. A follow through of 10% on Friday on that move Thursday, which was wicked. Smoking 42%, followed up by 10%. Man, what a breakout and a move for Dave. Wow. I don't own Dave. I'm sorry I don't, but another fintech stock up 60% last week. Thank you very much. So, yeah, when the people are whining that, they get hammered in their earnings, yeah, there's a lot of folks getting hammered in earnings. They're risk events. I'm just trying to show you the positive ones and, the ones that coincide with this, once again, wow, it's got triple digit earnings growth and it moved higher. Amazing coincidence. And another thing you got to point out is this, earnings line trending higher, stock trending higher. That's not a coincidence. Groupon, I don't know what prompted this one. I didn't read the report. I just noticed the move, big move on Thursday, yeah, 43%, followed up with a 3% move on Friday. So, yeah, earnings line not so keen. I don't know what's going on with this one. Maybe some news related besides, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, CPNG, I did see they had a big buyback here. So you got this double bottom base pattern, big move on Wednesday of 11%, a little inside day on Thursday, and then kind of a bounce off the 5 there. See, these leading stocks like that 5, and Coupang is definitely a leader. I'm not putting it on my leading stock list this week because it just doesn't have the growth profile that I like. Went from 27, 21, 11. Sales is down, but if you go by performance at 25.80 is definitely an area of interest. So it could show up on our ready list on Monday. I don't put one out on the weekend, but Monday I just kind of look around on the weekends, shop around, as Smokey would say, and then I'll post on a Monday. Okay, some other ones. Dutch Bros reported, man, this thing, I just put it away in my retirement account. I'm just going to forget it for like 5 years. I know they're taking market share. I don't know about the daily or weekly wiggles of this thing. I don't know why this thing is, I guess it's an expensive stock, but they had 4.7 same store sales growth. They added, I don't know, 150, 180 doors, shops from year to over year. And they're only in 18 states and they're just growing. The United States has 50 states last time I checked. So I'm thinking in 5 years, the way they're taking market share, 4.7 same store sales. That means the store down the street from you had nearly 5% greater sales than last year. I don't know if it's more foot traffic or people are ordering more. I'm thinking it's more foot traffic. People kind of order the same stuff, but they're getting more people. Where are those people coming from? I don't know. Maybe, Dunkin' Donuts, maybe Starbucks, maybe. I don't know, but it broke above its downtrend line on Thursday, then pulled back, got a couple of upgrades. not a killer move here for Dutch Bros. Like I say, it's still an expensive stock. It went up 9% on Thursday and then had an inside day on Friday. If you look at it, it's a weekly review, so I'll look at the weekly chart. Once again, you got to look at all charts, all time frames. Just a pullback, you can't be afraid of pullbacks to the 200. That's going to happen with all stocks. It's got almost a 10 billion market cap right now with about, I don't know, nearly call it 2 billion in sales. So 5 times sales. It's not cheap. And it's a retail name, and retail people, it's finicky. It's a finicky group because people, in retail, they like it one year and the next year they go to something else. So that's why, retail is kind of funny, but I'm thinking they have a long runway for growth, and I'm sticking with it. And you can see the monthly chart here. This is what I would just call it's still in an IPO base, still in its due diligence phase and not really reached its advanced phase yet. And I think it's going to make new highs in 2025 and 2026. And like I said, just a long-term hold for me. Lifted, man. This thing lifted big time on Friday. I didn't really, get the report, but it's got Uber, jealous now. 28% move on Friday. Just, breaking out of this downtrend line. You can see it on the weekly. Yeah, nice. And nice move higher, up 32% last week. So lifting to the moon, baby. I better get through these a little quicker. TTD, nice report. This is ad revenue. You can see it's got this like island box here, and it's got a long way to go to reach this old gap fill of 118. A long way to go there from 71. You can see the big volume, big move for the trade desk, and you want to see how beaten up it is. Look at this, man. But it's rallying back. You can see, what, 4, 5, 6 weeks in a row. So nice move. TMDX, I put this one on our leaderboard. Fantastic report. Triple digit, earnings growth. I'm a sucker for that. I'm sorry. Once again, it's got this little island like, TTD, not quite as profound and breaking out of it now. Of its little, I guess you'd call it a Darvis box, or, this little island of, if you were shorting here, you are screwed. And I mentioned my Thursday video, it's got this low gap fill here. You can call it 126 or you can call it 116. And it filled that gap on Friday of the 116. Still got that 126 to go here. I think it's going higher with that kind of a report. Maybe some short covering, but institutions are going to, they're eventually, maybe not right away, but eventually they're going to be, Wall Street's attracted to growth like crack addicts are to crack. So, this growth is going to be rewarded. They're going to come here with their money buying this stuff up as long as, the market cooperates and we don't have a severe correction, which I just showed you. We had a 27% correction. So I don't think we're going to have that again, but anything can happen in the stock market. You have to be open-minded and flexible. This is Root, another report. This one, cup with handle pattern. I like this one as well for the ready list. Maybe not right away next week, but that 154.82 area is definitely an area of interest for me. It's a little tick below it there, but you can see that cup with handle. Got to look at the weekly. Yeah, nice pattern here, consolidation. Traded up, formed another base. Yeah, I like that a lot. That's Root. And then Halo reported, had a good move and then pulled back the next couple of days. That's kind of not what I want to see on a gap higher. It closed near the high of the daily range, 96%. So you're thinking, wow, the next day it's going to follow through. But Thursday, as the Nasdaq had a follow through day, this thing pulled back 3.44%. And then on Friday, another nearly 3% move. But you could just say it's pulling back to its 5. It's going to find support. Once again, the strong sales growth, 35%, accelerating earnings growth, over 40% is acceptable. This is not a speculative biotech name. This has got real strong, their drugs are selling. I don't want to get into their drugs. I'm going to move on here because I have just too much to do. I just wanted to point out though, this gap higher here on Wednesday of 18%, you expect it to gap and go. And I watching the gaps, and some of them are fading and some of them are not. You want to see what Duolingo's doing, right? This thing gapped higher on May 2, the prior Friday, 2 weeks ago, of 22%. And what did it do? It just kept screaming higher. It's not waiting for the 5. This thing's incredible. So, yeah, nice move of 28% on the prior week. And then last week just followed through with a pedestrian 5.5% move. And that's what I look for in leading stocks, this powering higher, big volume, institutional support, riding that 5 to higher prices. All right. That's it for earnings, believe it or not. I mentioned leaders. If we're going to have a rally, you need leading stocks. And now we're starting to see the leaders broaden, but Netflix was the first one out of the box here, out of the gate, and it's just minding its 5. I mentioned all the time how the moving averages, the faster moving averages trade through the 50. And that started this uptrend here. And you're seeing that with a lot of leading stocks now. Netflix was the first one. Palantir was a leader as well. You can see the 5 and the 21 trading through the 50 here. When was this back on? Yeah, April 23rd. And what's it done, since the, it was $91, $96, and now what did it close at? 117. So definitely trading higher. I'm looking for like a 5-day handle here. It shook out with earnings, so we count them here, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 5 days here. I'm putting that one on the ready list as well. This is just too good of a stock. Had a pullback following earnings, buy the rumor, sell the news, shook out to the 21, classic stuff here, rallied back up. So it came down to 105, then rallied up to 120, a 15-point move. So that's your Livermore, shakeout plus 10 move, or really it's 10%, and then had an inside day on Friday. I think Palantir's ripe. I had it on my ready list last week with an asterisk because of the earnings. You don't know what the hell, earnings are going to do. We've seen some crazy moves with earnings, but that 125 area, 41, if it trades above that, that's definitely a trigger for Palantir, which is one of the leaders. I showed you Duolingo earlier, definitely a leader, short-term moving averages driving through, the 50 here. Spotify, double bottom base, had that shakeout following earnings. Once again, that Livermore shakeout, +3 pattern, 10%, whatever, and just riding the 5 to higher prices. Pulled back on Friday with the index, just kind of going flat to me. God, if you don't own this one, on pullbacks to the 5, that looks really good to me. Mercado Libre reported earnings last week, right? Yeah, gapped higher. I don't know why I didn't have this on my earnings. It's on my leading stock list, that's why. And then just had an inside day on Friday. 6.5% move. I think I had it there at 2202, just a standard. And then now it's at 24.50. I think I had this the prior week. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, I'd have to look at my notes. Rubrik, another leading stock, just forming this double bottom base pattern, just kind of pushing away from that area, 7611. Another one that I like, cybersecurity like a lot. CrowdStrike had some problems last week. It's a leading stock with the yeah, I don't know. This investigation news is old, man. This goes back to last year, but they rehashed some old news and it resurfaced on Friday, and the stock pulled back 4% back to its 21. To me, I don't buy dips, I buy bounces off dips, and if that thing starts bouncing on Monday, that would be go time for me. Another one, to me, the digital currency stocks, if you don't own, IBIT or any type of Bitcoin, if you don't own it outright, if you want to own the stock, MicroStrategy is definitely tethered to Bitcoin. Nice move last week. We had this one on the ready list recently. And then the other one is Robinhood, which had earnings report and didn't do anything. It had earnings report this week, just went flat, and people were, oh, what's better with Robinhood? It's not moving. And this is what I'm talking about. Wall Street's attracted to growth, and they had a triple-digit earnings growth, 50% sales growth. You know, the prior quarter, they've had their first $1 billion quarter, and this quarter was 927. Like I say, it's not going to be linear. It's going to be choppy, but growth is growth. And over time, that growth is going to be rewarded. It's a weekly review. So you look at the weekly chart, it's still, to me, just forming a base. And if you look at the monthly, this is just an IPO base. This thing really hasn't made its move yet. And I think it's the most innovative fintech stock out there. And, you know, I would put it in my retirement account and just hold it for 5 years. I think you'll be happy when you look back in 5 years. Okay, another one that I have to mention, another leader, going through leading stocks here. This is GE Vernova, definitely leader. Once again, the shorter term moving averages traded through the 50, and it's done nothing but trade higher ever since. Still consolidating within a base. To me, this is still, you know, actionable. It's not too extended as it pulled back to its 5, you know, last week. So GE definitely a leader. And you know, I'm talking about, you know, these earnings reports from last week. Those stocks are potential leaders. These ones are, you know, out of the gate and gone. HWM, a defensive name, APG, another one that's just gone, right? Extended. And then ODD, got to have a retail name, the cosmetics. This one, you know, riding the 5 to higher prices. So leading stocks will tell you the health of the market, but I just showed you a ton of EPS stocks from last week that are likely to join. So we're seeing a broadening of leadership here in this rally. And to me, that's what makes a rally, leading stocks, not just looking at the Nasdaq and saying, oh, you know, it's finished above the 21, you know, 12 days. Well, that's great. But if you want to make money in stocks, you got to buy stocks. And I just showed you a ton of stocks. Okay, so I'm going to move on now to an area that I think needs warrants, you know, your consideration or my consideration, because it had this whack day on January 27th, the DeepSeek day, and I said at the time it's going to take time to repair these charts, and these things have gone through. You know, this is a double bottom base pattern here. There's your whack day, right? And it just took some time, right? And it came up and then had this double bottom pattern. Everybody who wanted out got out. You got this high volume move to the lows. That also, I bet that coincides with the low of the index right around April 7th. Yeah, okay. So that stands to reason. Then it rallies through its 200, rallies through its 50, and now you can see the 5 and the 21 have rallied through that 200. So to me, forming this little shelf pattern. They had earnings last week as well. I didn't highlight that because wasn't really excited about the numbers. But forming this shelf pattern here above the 21, to me, you got to wait for the bounce. It might pull back to the 21 and bounce, or it might just bounce off this 5 here. But definitely these are ones that I'm watching because they're improving. GEV is the leader of the group, but I'm just showing you some other ones within the group here. This is VRT below the 200, but once again, you know, the 5, the 21 has rallied through the 50, and usually when that happens, good things happen as long as the market's, you know, cooperating. Got this little shelf-like pattern consolidation. To me, that's stealth accumulation, and then when it trades through the 200, I'll be more interested, just like Tesla. Another one in this group that I need to watch, CEG, they just reported last week. Now, this one has traded through its 200, so a little stronger than the ones that I just showed you. The 5, the 21 have rallied through the 50 maybe. If that wants to form a shelf, back to the 5 and bounce, I'm all for that. Thank you very much. A couple more here, and then I'm going to move on. Uh, OKLO. Hey, I love talking stocks here, man. This is a great time to be in the market and a great time to you know, make money here. And I'm just trying to, you know, show some stocks with some opportunities here. This is OKLO. They report this week, you know, little shelf pattern, you know, consolidating here. This one rallied, you know, it's above its 50, it's above its 200. You could see the 5 and the 21 now rallying through the 50. To me, this is definitely a stock of interest. You know, just, you know, they have earnings on the 13th. You don't know which way it's going to run. But to me, if it starts to bounce, this one moves really fast. As we've seen this in the past here, this one just flies, you know, 5 to 28, a 5 bagger, then 17 to 58. Yeah, we'll take that 3 bagger all day long. If it wants to do that, hey, I'm all for that. Okay, another couple more, then I'm going to move on. These data center plays, energy, power, construction. Sterling looks good here. You can see the 5 and the 21 rallied through the moving averages here through the 200. That one looks super good to me. And then Quanta Services, I call it power. I don't know. That's just the way my brain works. But it had this nice big consolidation, the base. Once again, these ones all got whacked, right? The January 27th whack day. So it's had like 4 months to heal, to recover. The double bottom base pattern here. This one, pattern rec is picking it up as a cup shape pattern. Thank you, Mike Webster, for your pattern recs. And then pull back to the 5 here. To me, that one looks really good. And this group looks really good. And that's why I wanted to point them out to you. Also, the gold stocks, don't give up on gold. Yeah, they pulled back. And I see a lot of people saying it's over, they're dying, commodities suck, blah, blah, blah. I'm just saying, as long as they hold up at the 21, I wouldn't ignore them. These stocks are not to be ignored. This is Anglo Gold Ashanti. This is the top performing gold stock in 2025. So don't ignore that one. And then the last one is AEM Agnico Eagle Mines, another one that pulled back to the 21 and found support. So, people just want to give up on stocks real quick. As soon as they sell off a little bit, that stock sucks. Don't be like that. Those were opportunities, man. Every time this stock has pulled back, it's been an opportunity, right? High or low. So I know everybody's a day trader. Everybody wants their stock to go up every day, but that's just not reality. And when they pull back, that's our opportunity. Okay, I'm just going to go to the IPO stocks. I'm going to move on. Going to throw you a curveball with CoreWeave. This stock pissed me off last week. Excuse me. The management's being kind of greedy here. They were not happy, I guess, with their IPO. I don't know why. I mean, it rallied up. Yeah, it's not up to the the price here, the 64. Yeah, it sold off to 33. But I don't know. I better not say something that I'm going to regret. It just okay. It's an IPO. It's still in an IPO base, so I'm going to stop there. I like it, but I don't like what management did last week. This is Service Titan. I do like this one. Double bottom base pattern ran up to 128, pulled back the last 2 weeks. Once again, it pulled back. Does the stock suck? No, it just came back to the 21 and found support and bounced. So it's an IPO stock, man, and they're going to be volatile. Yeah, embrace pullbacks. It was up, so what, 7% on Friday. And yeah, so yeah, this is just an IPO base. Give it time. I like it. That's why I'm showing it to you. CHA, I really don't know what these guys do. The beverage, China beverage, tea. But anyway, just an IPO, just acknowledging that it's been pretty strong. And then KA, excuse me, KRMN Carmen. This is a defense name. They report, I believe, this week. And anyway, just in an IPO base there, 38.58 would be an area of interest. IPOs are, really tricky. This undercut the IPO, low, which is, standard. Form this little, I guess you'd call this a double bottom kind of pattern here. But anyway, just pointing out some IPOs. That's it for me. Thank you for watching at mcstockcharts.com. We never give up, except for in honor of the great Steve Jobs. We have more earnings coming up this week. I'm all about earnings. I'm all about earnings growth and sales growth. And this is where you find the stories, taking market share like you saw last week with Dave and SEZL and Dutch Bros and Axon and Carvana and Uber and Oscar. TMDX and Lyft and Trade Desk, so this week we're going to get some more starting with Monday. I like them when they report on Monday. I think they do better than reporting on Wednesday. So looking for that on Monday morning. Another stock that I'm interested in is SRAD. Kind of going sideways, a little caution ahead of the earnings report, but got to see what they have to say. A utility name. In RG reports, that thing's been really strong. The Utes have been strong, and they're kind of a defense name with their high dividend yields. SMR, this is like OKLO. This likes OKLO. So this could be a catalyst. So you got to watch these next week, those energy plays. And then ACHR, they report on what did I say? Monday, I guess. Okay. Today's the 10th, so the 12th would be Monday. So I'm interested to see what Archer Aviation has to say on Tuesday. SE definitely has the potential. You know, it got some pin action with MELI on Thursday, but then kind of pulled back on Friday. Caution ahead of their print on Tuesday. I like this one, just forming a shelf ahead of the earnings. I don't know what they're going to have to say about tariffs or anything, but that one I like. JD is reporting. CYBR, cybersecurity names reporting. This one, caution ahead. I like it though. Consolidating in a base. ONON is reporting on holding. These guys are, bothered by tariffs. Never know. I think they, made their shoe in China and Vietnam. So we'll have to wait and see. In you. Reporting, and then GRAL reporting Tuesday. Wednesday, we have Cisco Systems, the old blue chip behemoth. Not bad, not a bad chart there. Nice rally off that April 7th low, which a lot of stocks have done. Dynatrace reports. CoreWeave, I mentioned those little punks, and the solar stock, which had a nice little rally last week. This is Next Tracker, a nice double bottom heading into earnings. TAN was one of the top performing ETFs last week. Nice move for this. So don't ignore 8% move. So maybe these guys are starting to bottom. Anyway, Thursday we get BABA. Thursday we get Walmart. Yeah, that's a couple nice patterns there in BABA and Walmart. John Deere reports. I don't know, the farmers are having trouble. We'll have to see what they have to say. Applied Materials, this semiconductor equipment name reports Thursday. CAVA, retail's been hit and miss, and we're going to hear from a retail restaurant name. We'll see what they have to say. Doximity, a big move implied for this one. I think it's going to go higher, but you never know with earnings. Even with good reports, we're seeing buy the rumor, sell the news. So be careful there. And then Take-Two, another leading stock here, just powering higher. Reports earnings, they have the Grand Theft Auto delay, but it doesn't have the earnings growth that we like. Grand Theft Auto delay. We'll have to see what they say on Thursday. Anyway, thank you for watching. That's my weekly review at mcstockcharts.com. We never give up. Have a great weekend, everybody.